football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're doing it. We're literally doing it differently from everybody else. As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
You just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam. So who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football season, all the things that go with it.
Welcome in to the PFF NFL podcast.
Apparently there's a new intro, but we didn't hear it.
So I was under the impression that we were going to hear it. But
Same.
we're here. We're here.
But we have the new intro, and everybody else just heard it.
I think it's awesome.
Same. I like it.
Yeah.
I took some convincing to change the music because I have a certain, sentimental attachment to our music. The dun, 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 dun.
Been doing it since the 90s.
Right. But we broke out the new stuff, and Ken put it all together, some pretty cool audio segments and bits stitched in, and it worked better with that new music. So
we're growing as a
we've
podcast.
Changed.
Yeah, I think it's good. So
hashtag let us know.
Let us know what you think of the new intro. Thought it was great. I'll get better about my timing.
Well, next time we might either hear it or we'll have some other form of cue system. But
we'll get it. We'll get it. So today, NFL Combine is in the books, Sam. We'll do a little bit more of a review. We reviewed a little bit.
Review the whole thing this time.
On Friday.
Yes.
Yes, on Friday we touched a little bit on the wide receivers. If you did not listen on Friday, or if you did, there's two things I need to say.
Okay.
If you didn't listen on Friday,
listen.
Go back and listen.
Yeah.
Especially because our Darius Leonard interview aired, and I think it was fantastic. What wasn't fantastic
in related news
was the audio.
Yes.
For the Darius Leonard interview. But I feel like you get it's like, hey, we were at a live show and it's a bar and it's, it's not going to be easy to hear, but the content itself was great.
Yes. So the audio is sketchy. Let's just say that. It wasn't entirely our fault. There was some last minute technical snafus that our guys had to scramble to put right. So this is as good as we could get it, but we figured it was worth getting you guys the content to have to suffer through some rough audio. So also, by the way, which one was better, in the car or on the phone? One of them sounded a lot worse.
I think you said in the car we listened in the car on the drive home, and you said it wasn't as bad.
Better. Yeah. So if you have...
don't listen too closely with your headphones.
Right. So if you have a way of listening to it other than headphones, listen to it that way because it sounded better to me. But anyway, we had the Darius Leonard thing. That was on last week's podcast. Today, we would like to bring you one more segment from the live show from Joey Molinaro, I think his name is.
Yeah,
I asked him how to say it, and I still butcher it.
That's fine.
This is the guy, if you don't know him, Google him, fire it up on Twitter. He's been doing all these kind of cool impersonations, Colin Cowherd. We had him doing Mel Kiper going head-to-head with Mike Renner on Draft Prospects.
It was great. It was really good. Yeah, he's a future star. He might already be a star.
Phenomenal. He's already got significantly more Twitter followers than you or I. In fact,
like 3 times as much.
He has significantly more Twitter followers than you and I put together.
It's true. After like 2 weeks of work.
But he's not verified. So
no, yeah. Where's your
take that, Joey?
Where's your blue check mark, Joey?
Right.
Yeah. But maybe come back to us when you get the check mark.
He's kind of local, right? He's from Indy. So we talked about potentially doing some stuff down the road. He says he checks out a couple of Reds games, each year. So we might get him in.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, who am I to judge? We might get him in studio and do some stuff here.
Yeah, that's great. Joey did a great job. So check out that. Well, later on, we'll have that segment. Him and Renner going head-to-head. Leading up to that, though, Sam and I are going to go head-to-head with our winners and losers from the Combine. This is just like required content, right? A Combine happens. You have to declare who the winners and losers are. And let's not forget, the winners and losers, this is more about your stock, your perception, and you either had business to take care of and you did, or you had business to take care of and things did not go so well. And however you want to weigh the Combine, it matters. Every last bit of it matters. And the thing is, when you're battling for draft position, every last data point has at least some level of use.
It does. We talked before when we were previewing the Combine how much matters, and a lot of this is about sort of hitting thresholds, not necessarily the difference between 4-4 and 4-5 and all that kind of thing. So when we're talking about these, a lot of what we're talking about is the guys that were significant outliers at one end or another, right? Either their workout was phenomenal and that changes things slightly, or it was disastrous and that also changes things slightly. It's not everything, but it does make you reassess what you thought of these guys and at least change to some extent your opinion on these prospects.
All right, so let's go. You want to go back and forth here?
Alternate.
Okay.
Alternate. Do you want to go winner, winner, loser, loser, or all the winners, all the losers?
I'd say all the winners and all the losers.
Okay.
But do we start with losers or start with winners? Do we want to go out on top or start high?
Let's start with the bad. Let's get it out of the way first.
All right,
and
give
end on
me
a positive note.
Give me your first loser.
Wait, I got to scroll to my losers.
Yeah, because we wrote winners then losers.
We did.
So start with your first loser. We'll go back and forth.
Okay. First loser. I'm going to go out of order from what I've got in our document.
That's
here.
okay. That's okay.
The first loser is the city of Indianapolis.
Rest in peace, Indianapolis.
So, Indy is a great venue for the NFL Combine. It's small, it's compact. You can walk to almost all of it through either the convention center or the skywalk that takes you basically within a block of where you want to go, regardless of where you want to go. Now, if I'm nitpicking, it's almost always within a block, and you then have to scramble a block out in the freezing ass cold. So it's not perfect, but it's good.
That's
right?
okay. You just got to, bundle up.
Right. And there's a lot of hotels that are sort of off these convention centers that everybody stays in. So everybody can essentially meet in the same area somewhere along the convention center / stadium / where everybody is, right? Now, they moved all the times back so that the workouts could be prime time, so that the NFL could make more money, so that the TV ratings are better. Pretty much everybody seems to hate that. The players are apparently hanging around for hours longer than they need to. The agents aren't happy because A, it's potentially risking injury. B, it's for somebody else making money. Like, it's for an increased amount of money that they're not seeing any part of, so they're not inclined to help. The other thing that stood out is that, so before you would have the day's worth of workouts and all the actual event, and then come the evening, everyone is out in a few bars, drinking, networking, talking, doing
Steakhouses,
deals.
not just bars.
Eating.
Steakhouses turned bars as well.
Correct. And everybody has a good time, and that's when a lot of business, a lot of talk, a lot of information is exchanged. Now, everybody is stuck in the stadium until past midnight, and the place is dead. We went to one of these steakhouses after our live show, which went great.
St. Elmo's. We can drop it.
St. Elmo's. We went to Elmo's. We were like the last people in the building.
Yeah.
It was empty.
Yeah, and it's usually, all these places are generally packed. Pretty late.
Rammed full of people.
Yeah, and you usually plan your week with all right, it's like a 9 to 5 of business throughout the day, and then it's like, all right, we're going to meet for dinner. The thing I like about Indy is kind of like you said, it's condensed. There's one of 3 hotels where pretty much everybody's staying. We're going to meet here, and it's all connected by the convention center, and it's just easy. We're going to meet at the Starbucks, which, by the way, wasn't open. I mean, that could be why they're going to lose it. Indy might lose the Combine just because the Starbucks was under construction for the biggest week of the year.
That's a problem.
So anyway, I love the city of Indianapolis because it's driving distance for us from Cincinnati here.
That helps a lot.
But I also think logistically it makes a ton of sense.
It's perfect. So they're kind of screwing them over because everything's moved later and all the businesses, all the bars, all the restaurants are getting screwed in the evening. And 2, it sounds a lot like they want to move this thing and take it on the road. And because of all
the money.
Yeah. Because of all the advantages we just talked about, though, that Indy has, I don't know that there's that many cities you could move it to and have it succeed. Like, L.A. would be a disaster because L.A. is a sprawling mess. Vegas might work because it's at least set up for conventions.
Yeah, I don't know if L.A. has an area that's like that. I don't know L.A. very well. So is there an area that is convention center-y where you could, if you just drop anybody in a convention center, like if they did it in Miami where the Super Bowl was in that convention center, you could make it work.
Yeah, but
you would also need a field.
Right. You don't just need the convention center. You need the convention center. You need the field.
The field's that's the thing. It's right next to the stadium.
You need a few different. Not just it's connected. Like you get to it through an underground walkway.
Right.
You don't need to leave ever.
Right.
The shots you see on NFL Network where you see those guys walking through the corridor with the god awful orange 70s carpet. That's the convention center. That connects directly to Lucas Oil through like an underpass under the road. So you literally never need to go outside for these guys. They can walk right from their hotel to the stadium to do their workouts. Unless you can find a city that has a convention center connected to a field turf stadium, you have some problems. You have at least some other logistics that need to be worked out. Then you need multiple different hotels all within a pretty close area so that whole thing can function. Hey, let's meet you at the JW. Let's meet you, all those kind of things. Like I said, Vegas is kind of set up for conventions, so I can see that working. And in particular, if the Raiders Stadium is up and running, like that thing is across the street from Mandalay Bay. Mandalay Bay's got a convention center. That might work. I can see Vegas working.
Yeah.
I can see Vegas working. Now, it's more of a drive for us, and we had problems when we tried to get back from Indy, even though the road is like a straight line.
It is more of a drive.
Right.
Yes.
So you and I might have issues getting there.
We almost ended up in Canada on our way back.
Yeah, we did drive quite a long direction in the wrong direction.
Anyway, I don't know if we can name drop who it was or whatever, but there's a prominent NFL media member who said, and I don't know if he said anything like this on air. I didn't listen to every second of the combine, but he seems to think that this thing's going to continue to evolve and that they're going to start tracking and grading and timing everything. Sounds like PFF. But I mean, they're like every single drill may be timed in the future. I mean, it seems like the way this is going is to turn it into more of a competition and more of essentially, a fan showcase type of thing. Like think those old Pro Bowl skills competitions.
Yeah.
It seems like they might want to start going that way. I can't imagine agents are all that happy about that. But agents are losing power every year as well.
They are, but it's a really interesting dynamic that, this is obviously the way this event wants to go because it makes more money, right? They can throw this on in prime time. They can make a fortune out of it. This is an enterprise, a league. We're hearing about this now because of the collective bargaining agreement. It is collectively bargained. The money is split. Now, it's not a 50-50 split yet, but it's a split between the players and the teams. This is one area that is not split to the players. You're asking these guys to come to work out, to put their talents on display on prime time so that you can make more money, and they're not seeing a penny of it.
Right.
They are doing that for the chance that you might draft them highly in a month or so's time. They're not getting anything out of this, and at some point that's probably going to be an issue.
So you got Indianapolis as
First
a loser. And it's mostly because the steakhouses lose out, or because we just see the writing on the wall that it's out.
I mean, I think generally this week showed that the city of Indianapolis is going to struggle.
Now wait, I know you couldn't hear every last thing that Peter King said on the live show.
Good, yeah.
But he did come into the week saying, I expect Indy to lose the combine, and he came out of it saying, I'm not so sure. And it was because he really thinks that the people of Indy, they buy in, they love it, they embrace this thing, whereas maybe Vegas or Los Angeles, you're not going to have that same type of feedback.
I mean, I agree. I think that's how it should work. I think whether or not they lose it, they have problems because of the primetime thing. Like, it's completely jacked the week. Everything around it. Like, the city of Indianapolis, I think, probably used to do very well out of the combine in terms of the ancillary money that's spent partying basically every evening. I don't know they're getting that anymore.
All right, so Indianapolis is your first loser. I'm going to go with my first loser, Laviska Shenault, Colorado wide receiver. And so he's having surgery this week to repair his core muscle injury that he's had. And he just didn't run. I mean, it just wasn't what we expected as far as the 40-yard dash goes, 4.58. So on one hand, you could say he came in, they found out he's injured, therefore his stock is going to suffer. On the other hand, you could say, well, he ran a 4.58 while injured, but I'm still putting him in the negative column just because of this wide receiver class and the depth there. And if you show up to Indianapolis and you leave with any kind of question mark, immediately you're probably going to end up losing some money just because of the depth at wide receiver.
Yeah, you see, I think if anything, he's a winner out of this. Because, I don't think the wide receiver group across the board generally blew people away in terms of speed, right? Obviously, Ruggs was down in the 4.2s, but nobody else was. It wasn't that blazing a group of receivers. So for him, and the other thing is 4.58 was clearly not representative of his speed on tape, right? So everybody pretty much knows that that's not his time, and then it's like, oh yeah, he was injured. He's going to go get that taken care of. Now he's basically not going to work out before the draft. He's put a 4.58 down, knowing that he was injured. That's not at the worst time in the world for a guy anyway. Yeah. Everybody knows he can run faster than that. I think he wins. Yeah, he gets to chill for the next couple of months.
I understand that, but there's certainly going to be some teams that are debating between Laviska Shenault and I've seen your winners, Denzel Mims, right?
How dare
one of your winners?
Do you not understand teases? And this is not how the show works. It's supposed to be a reveal.
Okay. One of the guys that you listed as a winner is going to be competing with Laviska for draft position at 20, 25, 30, whatever that spot is. And some team's going to say, what's the last thing that we saw other than a pro day? Well, what's one of the last things that we saw? We saw your winner crush the scouting combine, and we saw Laviska not crush it and go get surgery. I mean, the recency bias is going to be an issue, and the teams that are looking for a wide receiver are going to have similar grades on players in that late first or early second round range, and I think this is going to affect things.
I mean, I think those two in particular are very different players, and I don't know that their stocks are that closely correlated. I think Mims' stock can go up without affecting Shenault's stock. So
one man's loser is another man's winner. I get what you're saying.
And that's how the draft works, right? That's how it only takes one. You only need one nut job.
Yeah, I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, too, from LSU, another guy that ran 4.6. And it's like, if you just watch the tape, okay, he doesn't have breakaway speed, but he's a lot like David Montgomery. Like, he's going to make guys miss, and he's going to be really good up to 15 or 20 yards, which is the most important thing. But this number might make him drop. So some team's going to benefit from that. Just like some team will benefit from Laviska Shenault's probably dropping a little bit, but him personally, in his wallet, perhaps a loser this week.
I mean, I can I can see overall the argument that enough teams would think the way you are, that overall his stock goes down, even if, I mean, it only takes one not to think that way to take him still, in the top 15 or whatever. By the way, another, this is sort of an off-the-cuff winner that we won't put in there, but we didn't catch the coronavirus.
Yeah, that's a win, I guess.
Everybody's concerned about it. Michael over there in the corner is busy freaking out, talking about wearing a gas mask the next time he has to go on a plane. Peter King reports that not one but two NFL GMs would not shake his hand, one simply saying corona, electing instead for a fist bump, as if that solves the problem.
I would go
elbow, toes. You can't.
Why can't you just wave?
Yeah, but I mean, how? So here's the thing, right? We keep talking about 32 different levels of competency throughout the NFL. At least two people are apparently dumb enough that they think that if hand-to-hand contact through a handshake is going to catch you the virus, instead I'm going to fist bump, which is also hand-to-hand contact.
Well, there's less surface area.
Yes.
Where the disease can live.
I don't know that surface area is necessarily a giant.
And your fingertips are generally going to be the things that touch something where the disease lives.
Right, but
you're not going to,
Yeah, but it doesn't just stay on your fingertips in the exact spot you touch something. It moves.
It moves?
Yeah. It's a virus.
Huh. Yeah.
But anyway, people were genuinely freaked out in Indy about the coronavirus. But even though it hadn't, I don't think there had been, there'd only been a couple of reported cases in the States at that point. None in the states of Indiana and Ohio.
Yeah, but people were from all over.
Sure, but I mean, whatever.
There was
anyway, we are winners because we didn't catch the coronavirus, except maybe Tyler.
It is a fascinating week because there's so many people there, and there's people that you either know from Twitter and you've only met once or twice, or it's just this event where you see everybody once, twice, 3 times a year, depending on how much you travel in the media or in team settings. So there's a whole lot of head nods.
Yes.
Whole lot of bro handshakes. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a whole lot of missed handshakes.
That's even riskier.
Yeah.
You're going in deep at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, once you see a guy 3 or 4 times, one of your social media friends, you're probably going in for the bro handshake and hug and the whole thing. And then there's so many different types of handshakes. It's tough to know.
That's what confuses me.
It's really
struggle
tough
with that.
Yeah, I missed 6 or 7 by the end of the week where I just straight up
because here's the thing,
rolled off a guy's hand. I just didn't know.
So you're the bro handshake thing over here, right? Where you go kind of thumb to thumb. And then there's like a finger part of it.
How
like
much
a secondary thing.
How much do you? Yeah, you
and the hug, right?
You pull and you come in.
But then there's like a finger part to it as well. In Europe, the finger part doesn't exist. So it's just the like thumb to thumb.
You're really at a disadvantage.
It's like the handshake, but thumb to thumb, right? So I keep like, I haven't learned yet that there's no muscle memory for the fact that there's like a finger part to it after.
The advantage there is if it's like me and you talking to somebody and you shake his hand first, and then I evaluate the technique there, and then go in with the same technique.
Well, yeah, then you can see it.
See what they were going for. So it's a whole awkward week. And then as I tweeted out, there was one handshake unintended for me that I just grabbed. And I was like, oh, hey, how you doing? It was like for the person behind me. So I intercepted a handshake that was unintended for me.
Intercepted a handshake.
Yeah. What an awkward week overall
That's
from a handshake standpoint.
That's perfect.
Anyway, let's get back through. Give me another loser, Sam.
All right. Loser. Cameron Dantzler.
Who is?
Cornerback from Mississippi State.
Yes.
We
have to be very specific with everybody we discuss.
Cornerback from Mississippi State. So his thing is he was like 6'2", looked long, lanky, the skinniest guy you're ever going to see, right, on tape. Now, usually you would imagine that translates to length and the ability to break up passes, all that kind of thing. So his numbers in college are excellent. But he came in with arms that were under 32 inches long.
Under 31 inches long.
Which I don't even understand how that's possible, given what he looks like on tape. Then compounded the problem by running in the 4.6s. Now, we talked before about how the combine is all about thresholds and just be better than this number. Now, that is a number that's not really like above the threshold. That's a number that didn't meet the threshold, and that's a problem.
Yeah, so it's interesting going through his comps over at our friends at mockdraftable.com, a nice, easy way to visualize historic percentiles, height, weight, speed, and all that stuff. We have Dantzler. They have Dantzler in the 94th percentile for height, 6'2", and then the 23rd percentile for arm length.
Yeah.
That is a fascinating difference. And then one of the last podcast that we discussed Dantzler, producer Ken said, Bengals fan over here, was like, hey, that's our Trey Kirkpatrick. The number 3 comp for Dantzler on Mock Draftable is Trey Kirkpatrick. And if you look at Trey, very similar, 81st percentile height, 6'1", and the identical 23rd percentile in arm length, 30 and 5/8 inch arms. Now, how much does the arm length matter? Maybe not for playing football, but the teams that do want that long press corner want to see 30, really want to see 32-inch arms.
At least.
Because they think that's going to help with press and all that, which, again, in a vacuum, if you're just, two guys are identical and one guy has longer arms, in theory, you could teach him better technique, right? He could be a press man corner a little bit more effectively than the next guy. So as far as a loser goes, yes, that's not good. Not because he changed, but because his measurements were unexpected.
Right. I mean, we talked about just needing to meet thresholds and show that you are a better athlete than X, because beyond X, a lot of evidence exists to say that is a significant problem. Now, he didn't do that. His official time was 4.64. That's slower than Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman was in the 4.5s, I think, and he's like held up as the poster child for slow corners in the NFL that have still succeeded. Excuse me.
It's kind of Tease Tabor-ish. I mean, not as bad, but
right. I mean so that's the point, right? Is you're getting towards that Tease Tabor point of, I mean, this just cannot succeed at that level.
Right.
So there's nothing you can do about the arm length, right? That's just who he is. But the speed thing, like he has a shot at a pro day or whatever to change that or to improve and to get a better time than that. Because right now, that time is going to take him off a lot of boards completely. Like whatever about the arm length, there are teams that will live with that. There are teams that don't like it. That's a thing that, it's a sort of preference issue. But there is a lot of teams in the NFL that will just be taking this guy off their board if he doesn't improve on a 4.64.
Yeah, and again, I think when you talk about you're separating yourself from your peers, there's a whole bunch of cornerbacks in his range from a ranking standpoint. Who's going to be the 5th, 6th, 7th corner off the board? He's probably in that mix. And this week doesn't help him.
And this is a guy right now that's top 25 in PFF's big board.
Right.
Combine stuff. He is an extremely talented player with great production. The college tape, all the stuff before this is great, But that has now raised a massive red flag as to his stock. So if nothing else, got to be a loser.
I do like the way he plays in off coverage, and this reminds me of Rasul Douglas a couple years ago. Long, he hasn't been great at the NFL level, but a long corner who probably plays better in off coverage, but has this size that teams are going to desire as a press corner. But maybe his best skills are, off zone, that type of thing. My next loser, AJ Eppinessa, the defensive end, edge defender from Iowa.
Is he, though?
So I think from, again, an NFL viewpoint, you feel much more comfortable drafting an edge that checks all the athleticism measures, especially because you could easily compare all the best edges, the J.J. Watts and Von Millers and now T.J. Watts, like all these guys, Khalil Mack, they tick every box. Donnell Hunter, all these guys have the broad jump, they have the 3-cone, they have enough, the 10-yard burst, they have all that stuff. And a lot of times you just connect, well, these incredible athletes are the best guys that you see rushing the passer. But the comparison I used for Eppinessa after watching him was Trey Flowers. It's what we have in our draft guide over at PFF.com. The Trey Flowers comp. Trey Flowers was a 4th rounder, a 1st-round talent. Eppinessa is a similar player, similar production. I still think he's going to be a very good player. But again, I think when you're comparing him to the other edges, teams are going to feel more comfortable with a guy that's a better athlete. Are you questioning my loser again?
What? No.
Okay.
I questioned whether my point was that now he put this disastrous combine out there. There's a lot of people saying, well, this guy's not an edge. Can't play edge in the NFL with that athletic profile. That was my point. Not that he's a loser. That he might not be an edge anymore in the eyes of many. But I think you raise a good point, right? That our comp for him heading into the combine was Trey Flowers. And Trey Flowers has the same story, right? He's a guy who didn't have a good athletic profile at all, but was incredibly productive in college and has become a really good NFL player. So if that holds up, if that is who Eppinessa is, it didn't change anything.
Then he's still probably the 2nd best edge defender in this class behind Chase Young, as he is on our board.
Now, they're very different players.
Very different.
So, if you want a specific thing, as an edge defender, you go for one over the other. But, yeah.
Yeah, so here's the thing about him, too. 6'5", 275. He's got the 34.5-inch arms. That's 85th percentile. So that's how he plays, right? He's got pop in his hands. He moves defenders. He'll jack them up. He doesn't have the best burst off the line. The 40-yard dash was 5.04. But all of that stuff was on tape.
Yeah.
Also, for a power player, only 17 reps on the bench. 5th percentile among edge defenders. How much do you care? I don't know. But you usually just like to say, this guy's strong. Let's confirm it with whatever drill is out there. So,
but arm length. So that's going to be
the arm length is not.
You and I, Steve, to varying different degrees, understand that arm length is important when it comes to the bench press.
What about this side? So Neil was tweeting into the ether at 3:30 in the morning, as he usually does. Neil's just, I'm doing my workout. Let me just tweet to like the 6 people from the UK that are awake right now
and doing their gym work.
And he was debating, like a 3-second hold on the bench and this and that, which made me think, what if the bench press was the participant get to pick whichever weight he wanted and then rep it out, and then you can decide how to value that. Like, you give them a range. Obviously, you can't do like 50.
That would sound crazy.
But you go from like, say, 175 to 500. You can do whatever you want. So you could have one dude out there is just like 450 for 3 reps. Okay, take what you want. Another guy's like, I'm going to do not 225, I'll do 275 for 15 reps. So you pick what you want, rep it out, and then let the teams figure out what to do with it.
You have turned what is already an almost meaningless weightlifting event into a almost meaningless and completely unintelligible event in the space of one change. That's kind of spectacular.
Look, if the NFL wants fun, you get out there and you declare, that's it, I'm going to do 350.
Yeah. I already told you my KJ Hamler story. Did I tell that in the podcast?
I don't know.
So he knocked out whatever it was, 15 reps?
Yes.
At 178 or something, which is, a huge amount for a guy that weighs nothing.
Right.
And was apparently pissed off enough at that number that he yelled fuck into a live mic like immediately after it had happened, forgetting that they have all this stuff wired up, and then was like, oh, my bad. But, so that was funny. But the other thing is Chris Carter was somehow like emceeing the bench press for the wide receivers. He's like one of these combine mentors that they have. And before the whole thing started, they're like getting the thing set up. You know, the strength and conditioning guys out there checking everything. And Chris Carter's out there making sure the mics are all live so that you can catch F-bombs dropped into them.
Right.
Of
course.
He like sat down, tried to throw out a rep, and almost killed himself. Like the strength and conditioning guy had to like save him. Otherwise, we might have lost Chris Carter before the bench press even began.
What a coach.
That was kind of funny.
Friend of the show, Chris Carter.
It feels like you would want to make sure that you could handle that pretty comfortably before you like jumped down and did a rep in front of people.
Yeah, you would think. All right.
Not though.
Eppinessa is my second loser. Give me your third.
My third loser, Derek Brown, defensive interior from Auburn.
Ooh.
Stephen.
Are you ignoring the tape, Sam?
I'm not ignoring it, but again, I am raising a red flag that says this probably now changes what you think of him as, or what he can be at the next level. So it's not that he's a bad player, but he now, I think, becomes a specific type of interior defender in your eyes, right? So he's not going to be, I don't think he's even going to be a Chris Jones, right? A guy that's got all the strength in the world that can dominate and can be a great pass rusher. I think you're now throwing him into the category of Linval Joseph and Akeem Hicks and guys that they can generate pressure and they can be dominant even against the pass. It's just, it's not what they excel at, right? They dominate against the run. They control guys at the line of scrimmage, and they're so strong that they win enough pass rushing reps to make an impact or at least be on the field in those downs. But they're not real. I mean, Hicks, I guess, is the absolute apex of that kind of player, right? A guy that can legitimately be a difference maker as a pass rusher and a run defender. But, man, you're now aiming at a really small target.
Akeem Hicks?
Yeah.
Yeah, Akeem Hicks, I thought of him a little bit with Javon Kinlaw, the interior defensive lineman for South Carolina. I think Derek Brown and Javon Kinlaw, they're the two guys, sitting atop our DI rankings, right? And I think both guys are similar. I thought both of them remind me a little bit of Hicks, and it took Hicks like 3 or 4 years to really get going, right? Here's my issue with Brown and the interior defensive linemen in general, right? It's such a draft of pass game playmakers this year. There's a few quarterbacks. There are a plethora of receivers. There's a ton of offensive tackle talent. And there's a decent group of cornerbacks, right? If I come out of the first round with Derek Brown, no offense to Derek Brown, with just like an interior defensive lineman who's a good run defender and maybe, an okay, pretty good to good pass rusher, I'm not feeling that excited in this particular draft. So like I used to go into my fantasy drafts and there's guys who like project okay. I just don't want them on my team. Like, hey, you're probably the 20th best player in this fantasy draft. I just don't want you. I'm just not going to pick you. I'll let somebody else get you. You're going to be fine. It's kind of how I feel about Derek Brown and a lot of these interior players. I just don't want you to be my first-round pick this particular year, especially the more and more we learn about the true impact of the interior defensive lineman compared to edges and especially compared to corners and as you get further away from the ball.
I mean, I think if you're going to spend that a really high pick on an interior player, you want them to be an Aaron Donald style of player. Not, obviously you want them to be Aaron Donald, right? i.e. the best defender in the NFL. But ideally, what you really want is a guy that's just going to get a consistent amount of pressure constantly. And that's valuable. That's big. That's huge. But if you're not getting that, it's a lot harder. It's a lot of a harder sell. I just want to make the point of just how catastrophic Derek Brown's measurables actually were. So he was in the 16th or lower percentile in the 40, the vertical, the 20-yard shuttle, and the 3-cone.
3-cone was the worst
His
of
3-cone
anyone.
was 8.22 seconds, which is like, I mean, an aircraft could make that kind of turning circle. That's abysmal. Everything was bad, right? So he probably has better tape than almost anybody he gets compared to in terms of that style of player. Whether it's Linval Joseph, whether it's Akeem Hicks, whether it's Jordan Phillips, all those guys. He probably has the best tape of any of those guys coming out. But you now have to start talking about this guy. In order for him to be the dominant player that we thought he was leading up to this, like he needs to maximize every last inch of that. He basically... A lot of people talk about the combine so I saw Chris Ballard, the Indianapolis GM, talk about how we're in the elimination game, right? Our job here is to eliminate prospects from our list so that we end up with a draft board of guys we really like, right? And we eliminate them in a variety of different ways, whether it's measurables, whether it's tape, whether it's interviews at the combine.
Straight
This guy's a
character.
moron. We're not touching him. Whether it's character, whether it's medicals. Each one of these things is an exercise in eliminating the prospect pool and getting down to a finite group of guys. This is a reason to eliminate Derek Brown on a lot of boards, right? It's sure he might buck that trend, and the tape is so good that he might become a great player. On the other hand, do you want to be the guy playing those odds?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a great way to put it. And Mike Renner has made this point in the past, and I appreciate it. Right? It's like it's worse to. It's not as bad to just not take a player who ends up being good. Like everybody who's like, 32 teams passed on Russell Wilson, 31 teams, or really all 32. Everybody passed on Russell Wilson. Well, I mean, if you're just true to however you evaluate, and you just said, okay, we're just going to pass on him. We're going to eliminate him. I don't hate that. So like when people go, but who did you miss? And we say, well, Deion Jones, we missed. We didn't like him. The grades weren't great. He's become a spectacular coverage player. Whatever it is. You feel stronger about those and just say, okay, those are outliers. Those are okay. But it's worse to completely go all in on a player and say, this is my guy, and then he fails, because that's who you're attached to. You're not attached to the guy that you didn't take. You're attached to the guy that you did take. So if you're like, hey, I'm eliminating, like if you're in the top 15 and you say, I'm not going to touch Derek Brown, not just because of this, but because of positional value and whatever it might be, like I'm okay with that, even if he becomes a very good player.
Yeah, almost all of those you could have taken this guy posts, the retrospective hindsight 2020 things.
Yeah.
They almost always exist because the guy that you took sucks. It's not that, you didn't take Russell Wilson. It's that you passed up on Russell Wilson to take a guy that busted.
Or like a punter or whatever it is.
Right, or whatever. But it's always the contrast that makes it a story. It's not the fact that you didn't take him. It's the fact that the guy that you did take, you missed on.
Right.
And that's the problem.
So Derek Brown, I think that's fair. I mean, with interior defensive linemen, we've seen Jonathan Allen in previous years with something similar, where it's like we wanted it. He dominated on the field. We wanted to see him dominate the combine, which he didn't do.
I think at the very minimum, it characterizes the kind of player he is, which in and of itself probably lessens his value.
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it. All right, so wrapping up the losers. Wide receiver Juwan Jennings from Tennessee. Again, you've got a guy some people have called a fringe first rounder. He's up there on our board and runs a 4.72 at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Is he injured? Is he broken? Like everybody still references Keenan Allen's 4.71 that he ran. Keenan Allen was like legitimately hurt. And you just watched him play football and it's like, okay, he's a 4.5 guy at worst. And he's like one of the best route runners we've seen, right?
Even if he wasn't, he has the best release of anybody in the NFL, or at least one of the top.
But Allen also like came into college as like an offensive weapon that they put the ball in his hands and he created big plays. Like he played fast, was injured, and ran 4.7. So please don't compare to Keenan Allen, what Juwan Jennings is trotting out there, 4.72 plus a 29-inch vertical, like both second percentile type of rankings over at Mock Draftable, just not explosive at all.
So I watched this guy on tape when we were doing our receiver preview. Didn't really like him. And when, obviously we're coming at this behind the 8 ball in terms of analysis compared with our draft guy, Mike Renner. So I asked Mike, I was like, Mike, tell me why I should like Juwan Jennings. And he told me contested catch guy. Or at least that was right up front with what he was saying. And my
There's
opinion
your red flag.
on contested catch guys, if that's what you're leading with. It's concerning. So, yes, he can make some spectacular catches. On the other hand, if he runs a 4.7 and can't get open, that's not encouraging.
I don't know if there was a tweet from Jennings' agent defending this, but I just want to piggyback on this. When the Schefters and Rappaports and other reporters of the world basically copy and paste the tweet or the text that was given to them from an agent, I just die a little inside every time. Die inside a little bit. I hate it. Like, so you run a bad 40, and then I'm your agent, and I'm like, mass text to NFL media. Sam really tweaked something early in the day, but he battled through to really attempt his 40. He's a competitor, after all. We're going to come back at our pro day stronger than ever.
It feels like
I'm disappointed in my effort. However, I just couldn't let all of my teammates down. I had to battle through. Therefore, my time that was subpar, let's not focus on it too much. because I'm just a competitor and I fight and I battle and I'm a little hurt.
It feels like at the very minimum, you would at least reword the text before you send it out into the world.
I mean, it's straight copy. Like this,
Right.
The agent sends it to like 30 people and they just like, well, let's just tweet this out.
If just because you know everybody else is going to be doing that, why wouldn't you like reword it so it's clear that we didn't just all get the same group text and tweet it
Well, the
out?
best part was it isn't just like player X was hurt. It's like player X was hurt and he battled his way through, right? I mean, it's always, something about their character or something like that. I mean, it's just, look, you got to keep your sources happy.
Right. Winners.
So, anyway, let's get through our winners. Your turn.
Yes. Tua, and because of Tua, the Redskins. So Tua, the big thing for him at the combine was not the workouts, was not 40 times, etc. It was getting medically checked. And obviously we don't have access to the medicals, and even if we did, I don't know that you and I are the best people to read an MRI.
Your parents are doctors. You can do that.
True. But the reports suggest that his medical stuff came back fine, right? Everything is encouraging. No Bo Jackson-style loss of blood that's going to cause a degenerative problem. Tua's hip is supposedly going to be A-OK. Consequently, his draft stock remains really good because he's now like 1A in the list of quarterbacks, which puts him in the discussion for number 2 overall. But the other thing is that makes the Redskins open for business, because there were reports out there that they want to take Tua and have a competition with Haskins. I know you're all on board with that, but I think it's more likely that they're essentially trying to shop number 2. It's like, okay, Tua's viable now. Now you're going to have to get up to 2 if you want him because we control that pick.
Yeah, I love the power play there. And, look, when I'm in a front office, I'll put out plenty of fake information in there. And I'm sure there's plenty of meetings that are like, hey, look, we're rolling with Haskins. But first off, you have to do your due diligence on the quarterbacks just in case Cincinnati takes the wrong guy. And it's like, well, now we definitely would take Burrow and we wouldn't take Tua. You just have to have those answers.
Sure.
But at the very least, have the meeting like, look, okay, we're going to roll with Haskins. And now what are the scenarios? We could trade down for Tua lovers and pick up all sorts of picks, or we could pick Chase Young, or we could still trade down for somebody that wants Chase Young. So you put all those scenarios on the board. And to maximize the value there, it's like, well, we got to bring Tua in just to show that we're interested. We obviously people know that we're interested in Chase Young. So yeah, absolutely. When I'm, running the show somewhere, I would, try to build up all the stock for the guys that people want to trade for.
I mean, whether or not you think that the Redskins actually think that taking Tua at 2 and having a competition with Haskins is a good plan or not, the fact that he was cleared completely medically and is now in play for number 2
Huge.
is a massive win for them, because they get that leverage and they can start making those trade demands and start trying to generate interest in that number 2 pick, which is ultimately what they want, right? They want that pick's value to increase so they have better options. So winner.
So the Redskins win, Tua wins.
Yes.
All right, my first winner, obviously, this is an easy one. Isaiah Simmons. Really the entire Clemson back 7, like Tanner Muse, A.J. Terrell, all those dudes were running fast. Kayvon Wallace, they're all running incredibly fast. Now, Isaiah Simmons, this is like, how much do you double count stuff is my question, right?
Right.
You watch the film, he's explosive, he's an offensive weapon, you can use him everywhere. We did about 20 minutes of a segment the other day about how you can use Isaiah Simmons. So the fact that he ran a 4.39 and had a 39-inch vertical, 98th percentile broad, all that stuff, does that move him up even further? Or is it just like, okay, confirming what we saw on tape? But I think there's like a legit discussion now. Like, how soon do you take him? Our friends over at the PFF Forecast, who have pushed the narrative that coverage or coverage ability in general is more important than pass rush, would say, look, he might be the best defensive player on the board above Chase Young. And the discussion there is centered more around, I feel really confident that Chase Young will get here as a pass rusher, but if Simmons hits his ceiling, it's worth more. Is there like a legit discussion for the Redskins, for the Lions at 3, the Giants at 4, all of these teams? Like, how high could Simmons actually go?
To me, that's double counting it and getting out of control and losing your mind because the combine just happened. Like,
Right.
I think Isaiah Simmons is a really good player. I'm still kind of... So I think I comp him a little bit to the Jalen Smith thing, not because they're similar players, but because I think that people were more in love with the idea of Jalen Smith than the player of Jalen Smith. And I think the same thing is true with Isaiah Simmons. people are more in love with the concept of think of Tyrann Mathieu, but 6'3", 240,
right,
and running a 4.3, right? And it's like, think what you could do with that. And the reality is most teams wouldn't do anything with that. They just put him at linebacker and play in the same way they play any other linebacker. At which point, what is the point in being bigger, faster, stronger? It doesn't achieve anything. It doesn't. All it does is give you the play that you had on tape already. It doesn't transform this pick into something different because he can now hit this incredible ceiling that doesn't exist otherwise. No, I mean, so I think people are starting to become in love with this idea that's never going to be realized because no team is going to do it.
Here's the debate, too. So, producer Ken, asks a good question that I think maybe our listeners are asking. In terms of positional value, isn't Simmons a player who could do more? And, as a coverage first player, isn't he more valuable? Yes, in a vacuum, right? But again, the range of outcomes is so varied because Chase Young, like when he gets drafted, you know what he's going to do. He's going to line up on the edge, either side, and he's going to win a lot. And he's got a high percentage chance of becoming a top 5 pass rusher pretty early in his career. Mm-hmm. Like in that Bosa type, area, in the Garrett cut type of area. Maybe at best he reaches Von Miller, Khalil Mack, but his floor is pretty high. You feel pretty good that at worst he's like a top 10 pass rusher. So there's a confidence level of what you're getting. With Simmons, anytime you're talking about a back 7 player and a coverage first player, the confidence level is as low as it gets. It's one of the most difficult things to predict. And then you compound it by how are you going to use him? So what could be the outcomes? Like if he said his best position is weak side linebacker. So what if he became Derek Brooks, right? So like here are the options. Like if he becomes like one of the best weak side linebackers in NFL history, is that worth it versus Chase Young? If he becomes, say, Derwin James, he's had comparisons there. So he's a strong safety who plays pretty much strong safety. He's good against the run. He's good in coverage. Is that worth, Chase Young? Or is he the do-it-all player, the type that like a Patricia or a Belichick would use a ton, which is like 1 week he's spying the quarterback that is scrambling all over the place. The next week he's covering a running back, taking him out of the game. The next week, he's playing safety. Like, what is the best spot for him? And what are the best case scenarios?
Right. On the other hand, what we're really talking about is all the explosion drills were crazy, right? Didn't do the change of direction stuff, right? Which is smart.
That was your concern, watching them.
Yes. Now, the explosion stuff was incredible. Don't want to take that away from him whatsoever. On the other hand, this is not the first time a linebacker has posted insane explosion drills. So he could be Derek Brooks. On the other hand, what if he's Ernie Sims? What if he's Thomas Howard? What if he's Boss Bailey? Like, there are linebackers that were 6'3", 240 who ran 4.4s and sucked.
Boss Bailey, man, back in my Madden franchise days, Boss Bailey's like the first linebacker that had a 90-plus speed. You had to sign that guy.
Right. Now, Boss Bailey had a 42-inch vertical.
Yeah, he was crazy explosive.
Now, he didn't have the 4.39 or whatever it was. Now, all right.
Just not as good of a football player as Champ.
Here's another one for you. Manny Lawson. Manny Lawson was playing on the D-line.
He was more edge rusher, right.
Right, but 6'6", 240, ran a 4.4.
Right.
Same idea, right? Now, my whole point is I think if you're starting to lose control because of these incredible workout numbers, you're basically double counting what we already knew, which is Isaiah Simmons is a crazy good athlete, also a crazy good football player, judging by the tape, but this didn't change anything. This just put a stamp on it.
Let me just use PFF terms to wrap that up, too. With Chase Young, say, pass rush grade style, he'll have an 85-plus pass rush grade a big chunk of his career as far as season goes, right? Isaiah Simmons having like a 90-plus or an 85-plus coverage grade could only happen a handful of times throughout his career because his performance is still going to be so dependent on the offense, what his role is, and other stuff around him, where Chase Young's just going to go out there, hey, beat this tackle, and you can bank on that happening X amount of time and just feel much more confident in that particular ability as far as projecting it. So it's a great discussion. I mean, I think Simmons, I want him on my team.
Sure.
And I think he deserves to be in that top 10 discussion. And we'll have more on that as we get closer to the draft. But he's a winner, clearly.
Yeah. Next winner, Denzel Mims, wide receiver from Baylor. So most of the wide receivers I don't think had particularly strong winning combine performances. Mims did. Now, this is a guy who, as we said before, dominated the Senior Bowl. Big fan of people that dominated the Senior Bowl, as you know, Steve. If you then back that up with a spectacular combine outing.
Off-season warriors, that's what you like?
Well, now you start to put together a picture. Okay, this guy dominated when everybody was a greater level of competition, beat the best people, won against press coverage, which is something you don't always know coming out of a prospect. It looked like he was athletic and had the skill and had the sort of freaky height, weight, speed stuff, but you want to see numbers attached to that. So now we got them, right? 6'3", 207, 33-inch arms, 4'3'8" at that size, like 131-inch broad jump, so big broad jump, 6'6" three-cone at that size.
Is it weird that his three-cone was so different from his shuttle? 90th percentile three-cone, 10th percentile shuttle at 4.43.
It is. To me, so if I see all of the drills in the same area and then one stinker, I'm working on the basis that was like a technique problem.
Like he tripped.
Not even that he tripped.
He's not going
like,
5.35, 3.53
right.
with steps.
Maybe there's a step issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just working on the basis that one is an outlier and weird and doesn't count. I'm lopping off the score by the East German judge and carrying on with the average. So all of those, three-cone, broad, vertical, 40, they're all insane. We already saw how he could beat up the best competition in college football in terms of seniors. I would now be going back to the tape and asking the question of why is this guy not in the top tier of receivers?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, and I think we talked about it again on Friday just a little bit. Quarterback wasn't great last year at Baylor. I do like guys, to your point, the Senior Bowl is not everything, but you're seeing him against that consistent competition in an NFL setting. And yeah, Mims, there's no doubt Mims was a winner. That helped separate himself. He was number 31, I believe, on our board going into the weekend, and he'll be moving up even further. So easy winner there. My next winner, the entire offensive tackle class was great. I think you might have one too.
Yeah.
Professional tees. I'm going with Tristan Wirfs, though, from Iowa. All these tackles trying to separate themselves in that first-round mix. Just a freaky combine. 4.8, 5.40, 36.5-inch vertical, 99th percentile broad. And his three-cone was good as well. That is one of the few measures that has mapped to pretty good production at the next level, 71st percentile for Wirfs.
Yes. He also has the largest thighs I have ever seen from a human being.
So that's the type of analysis I'm expecting from you, Sam.
They were monstrous.
Thigh analysis.
Look, I'm not big on the idea of, the Underwear Olympics and basically scoping out dudes on the stage one after the other and writing notes about it. Doesn't do a whole lot for me. But every now and again, there's some part of a guy that you're like, oh my God, would you look at the state of that?
Just the extreme ends of the ranges.
Right. So Tristan Wirfs, when he's doing like the broad jump and you just see this like beer barrel, this keg of a thigh attached to his leg, and that is the thing that's propelling him either 9 feet in the air or 10 feet across the turf. It was just insane.
From an on-field standpoint, the thing I like about Wirfs, he's played left tackle and right tackle for Iowa last year. And in all of the metrics that you want to see a guy succeed at, namely true pass sets, so those dropbacks that are 5 and 7 step drop concepts, or 5 and 7 step concepts, the ones where the pocket's not moved, where 4+ rushers, so you're not dealing with a 3-man rush and have all sorts of help. He had the number 7 grade in the entire class. He performed well. He was in the 90th plus percentile when pass protecting with no play action on those 5 and 7 step dropbacks in those true pass sets, overall pass block grade. And he was one of the few guys to grade as a top 10 run blocker on both gap runs and zone runs, mostly zone runs at Iowa. But I just like that he was also good on the field in all the right areas. And the places where he struggled were ones that are, more inconsistent, more unstable. So I thought he was a player who's just good on the field and then, confirmed it with all the workouts.
I agree. My last winner, same offensive tackle class. This time it's Mekhi Becton, who is one of the largest human beings I've ever seen in my life. And not just that, like those come around every now and again, but he moved freaky fast for a guy that size. His times were nuts. He ran a 5.140 at, 364 pounds.
Yeah.
So that guy, you have like 100 pounds of extra human on top of me, right? Because you're 6'10", allegedly. Yeah. He has almost 100 pounds on you and can run a 5.1.
I'm closing in on him.
I think he could run a faster 40 than you, and he has you by almost 100 pounds in weight.
Well, that's his job.
That's just nuts.
That's his job.
That is unbelievable explosion and speed at that size.
Yeah, so interesting comparing Becton. I've really never seen a prospect like him. Not just the size and now all the speed, but even just like on the field. There were a lot of highlight reel blocks of his going around the interwebs. They're blocks that you literally never see people making. And it's just like the front side of zone, you're usually just kind of like engaging, you might just, kick out a little bit, and he just throws guys to the ground. Now, I don't know how translatable that is. You're not going to have too many, 200-pound defensive ends at the NFL level that you're going to toss.
But at the same time.
But I've never seen that before. I've never seen that many times where what's considered a pretty standard block becomes a straight-up pancake.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of straight pancakes in college in the NFL.
I mean, so it's true. You're not going to get too many 220-pound or NFL edge rushers, right? On the other hand, like the absolute best somebody's going to do is being outweighed by like 80 pounds.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have problems, whatever's going on.
It's true. So he's unique. The opposite of Wirfs, though, like he's a little concerning just from a pure data standpoint, like mid-tier grade on true pass sets and in other key areas. And, he was a good zone run blocker last year. They didn't run a whole lot of gap. They ran a ton of play action to help protect him. So it's just interesting as far as projecting him versus some of these other tackles. The data is pointing to some of the other tackles, but Becton is a freak, and there's a lot of top 10 hype, and he's working with our friend Duke on improving those passes.
And it's interesting that his grade kind of spiked the first year. He stopped doing that left and right thing that Louisville do.
That was
played left tackle.
That was legit.
Right? Stop moving. Then he had his best season. He allowed just 1 sack, 12 total pressures, had the best pass blocking and run blocking grade of his college career. Then goes to the combine and does freaky things at that size. Bryant McKinney is the guy I've seen him comp to a lot, which is always interesting because McKinney was another monstrous human being, like 6'8", 345. And McKinney's thing was always he was a way better athlete than you thought he was, and actually more of a finesse player than a power player, which you wouldn't think of a guy of those dimensions.
I want to change my last winner.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say Willie Gay, the linebacker from Mississippi State. He tested really well, 4.46, 1.5, 10-yard split. He did great. Chase Claypool did great. So all the linebackers in general, plus Chase Poole, wide receiver / tight end, okay, they won too. Do you know who else won? Just relationships in general.
Wow.
Relationships won. I saw more mended bridges than I've ever seen at the combine. Usually George and Eric, who burned all the bridges along the way and then mended them when we got to Indy.
Brady Quinn still hates me, if that helps.
Well, yeah, you're not a likable guy. But Eric, who, he's trashed, our friend Duke Manyweather, who's, and Duke's not hasn't been the friendliest back to us.
No.
But, we saw him. And, Prime brings everybody together. So at Prime, I saw Eric hug it out with Duke. And I saw him hug it out with Aaron Nagler.
Yeah.
From the Packers. They had some Twitter beef.
Right.
And there was someone else. I think there was another mended bridge. I mean, so there was a lot. So you've got the, Twitter beefs. Once you get into the steakhouse after hours, you mend those bridges.
Think alcohol has anything to do with that?
In certain cases, perhaps.
Okay.
Everybody becomes friendly.
Yes.
But I wasn't drinking. Duke and I were, and he seemed pretty sober, and we had a good conversation. We talked it out.
Yeah, I don't know if you need both of them, just at least one person.
At least one.
Yeah.
And Duke was...
Maybe that was my problem. Maybe I just need to get Brady Quinn drunk.
Duke was fine. And as we said, maybe... I don't know about Brady. I think he only likes Notre Dame people.
That's entirely
He
true.
was on the 2-for-1 forecast, which I do recommend.
Yeah.
Podcast. I just combined two
both
podcasts. The 2-for-1 forecast would be a great show.
I recommend you listen to both the forecast and the 2-for-1 drafts podcast.
One on fast speed and one on slow. Anyway.
Yeah.
So he was on the podcast there.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he only talked to Renner because they both went to Notre Dame. And he looked at Austin and was like, "Where'd you go?" "Oh, non-Power 5.
San Diego State?
Okay.
Get out of here.
Like, you pretty much have to go to Notre Dame.
In fact, if you could just tilt the camera this way a little bit, we'll just pretend you don't exist. We'll have a Notre Dame conversation.
Oh, yeah. And it was just like, "Hey, remember this dorm and this thing?" And then,
remember our theory, though, that Brady Quinn would crumble under intense trash talk?
He definitely would.
Pete Prisco, his teammate in this basketball tournament that's going to happen sometime in the future, confirmed that.
Confirmed.
He said absolutely, 100% he would seize up.
But the worst thing is, like, if Renner was playing against him, he wouldn't do it. He's like, "Oh, no.
Well,
I can't trash talk Notre Dame alumni."
This is now a you and me thing. We don't care about what Renner does.
No, I get it. I'm just saying,
are going to work on our Brady Quinn trash talk.
Yeah, we will. We will. Hey, Brady, what number were you in the Browns? No, he was before. Was he before Couch? No, he was in the middle of that.
Can't have been before.
He's like, no, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought for a second. He's like, what are you, like the number 12th quarterback that, didn't last a year?
I like the idea of, that pass was so bad that Ike Taylor came down with it. It's bringing back memories, huh, Brady?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so anyway, I thought Indy brings people together. In Duke specifically, he works with a lot of offensive linemen. I do think, so with Becton, the projections aren't great, but he's working with Duke, who I think is a really good teacher. And the fact that we've had Twitter beef in the past doesn't take away from the fact that I think what he's doing with NFL offensive linemen, with his OL masterminds and this whole deal.
He had like a mini summit at the Combine.
Well, yeah, because he's training all these guys. I think he's done a really good job of making a name for himself. He's a good trainer, and he's doing a good job of bringing those guys together and saying, look, how do we, as a group, attack these defensive linemen? Or when they attack, how do we handle it, right? So I like the concept as a whole. And as he said, we're all kind of working toward the same thing because we've seen ourselves as advocates for the offensive linemen. We've been saying for a while, look, if you're good, we can highlight that you're good because we're tracking that stuff. He's trying to be an advocate for offensive linemen who don't always have advocates. So I respect that part of it. So, yeah, relationships, one in Indy.
Wow.
And I don't know if that happens in L.A. or Vegas. It only happens in Indy at Prime.
Well, if it does happen in Vegas, it stays in Vegas. I mean, we know that.
Yeah, then you'd have to go back to Twitter and act like you hate each other.
Right.
It would stay in Vegas.
So that would be a problem.
So that'd be bad. That's, more reasons to stay in Indy.
What made you want to end the podcast, or at least this section of the podcast, on such a sappy note?
I don't know. I thought we had a good week. We sat there with every team, every NFL team except one, because they just didn't send enough people. That one team was the Rams, not trying to hide anything.
I met with Sean McVay.
What's that?
I met with Sean
Right,
McVay.
so we did meet with the Rams. We met with Zach many times, and you met with McVay. Yeah. You asked him a very, personal question.
Yeah, I asked him what he felt about stealing Zach from us.
He called Zach a future star.
Yeah.
That was great. Zach's like, cool. Didn't know that. Didn't know I was a future star.
I made sure to say that when he screws up, just send him back, though.
Yeah, we could use him. Zach's he's an asset. Anyway, I'm coming off a high. It was a good week.
Okay.
We have a whole new product behind the scenes called PFF IQ, and I thought it's all of our best stuff getting rolled into a new product in the next year or so, exclusively for NFL teams, and just saying, look, you guys are using our data this amount, you could be using it this much when it comes to every single decision that you make. So I think that's all moving in the right direction, and I thought it was a really good week. So I finished it on a sappy note.
Apparently.
Is that okay?
No.
All right, drag us back down.
I'm fed up with this sappiness. Let's get into some comedy and pitch this thing back to the live show. Now, again, apologies for the fact that the audio will not be the best in the world. On the other hand, it's funny stuff, so I think you should just suck it up and listen through it. This is probably the last live audio from this show that we will bring you, and in future efforts, we will endeavor to make the audio better. But listen to this. It's funny. Here's Joey Molinaro.
That's for podcast listeners only.
Yes.
And now, for the rest of you on the live YouTube feed, we're wrapping it up.
You don't get it.
That's it.
You got to listen. You got to download the show.
Download the show. Listen to Joey. If you guys just listen to it, he's really good.
He's really good.
I think I saw him do some stuff with PFT a few weeks ago. I don't know if Barstool's going to, snatch him up or what.
I don't know.
But he's a future star.
He's been everywhere. I saw after we snagged him for our live show, Matt Miller behind us on Radio Row sidled up and was like, hey, you want to do something with us? And they did something for their thing as well.
Yeah, so I think, I remember when Frank Caliendo went viral over 10 years ago. And it was like, here's a Madden.
Could you go viral 10 years ago?
Yeah, you could. YouTube still existed.
Okay. And,
you could still go viral back then. Not as easily as you can now. But Caliendo made a name for himself pretty quickly. I think Joey's moving quick. I think the Colin Cowherd's my favorite. He's got like the thing is, it's tough to have. It's one thing to have the voice and impression. It's another thing to have the content. The Cowherd
mannerisms.
And the mannerisms too, right? Like I did my Peter King impersonation at the live show, which is strictly voice. I don't have the mannerisms. That's it. I got voice and a little bit of content, right? Joey's got a ton of good Cowherd content.
Yeah.
Right, the backwards hat guy, and this, he does that really well.
And his Kuiper stuff was really good as well.
Kuiper stuff's good. He's got like the inflections and the tone, and he's got it all pretty good. It's tough to compete with Caliendo though, and he's got the Kuiper stuff. And
Well, he's younger.
he's young. He's got more time.
Yeah.
Anyway, good job, Joey. Appreciate it. We'll be doing some more stuff in the future, hopefully. Is that it? Are we wrapping it up?
Now we're out.
That's it. Monday show. We got our combine winners and losers. We'll be back on Thursday. It's all free agency and draft from here on out up until free agency and the draft. So stick with us. Appreciate everybody that showed up to the live show. A great turnout. Thousands and thousands of people, give or take. We can lie, right? Give or take.
Sure.
Thanks to everybody that turned up on Thursday night.
Stop talking. The music's playing. Let's get out.
They're playing
Done.
me out. See you Thursday.
You're cut.